All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to turn on my video for just a second here, and then I'll turn it off to save some bandwidth. My name is Nick Redden. I'm Vice President for ATC. Thank you for joining today. I'll talk just briefly here about ATC before I hand it over to Parag Bakre, who's our Head of Delivery, and also an SPC. And then later today, during the call, we'll also have Nisha joining us, who's also one of our trainers. Some of you may be familiar with one of them, both of them, or you may just know some of our other trainers. But either way, we're very glad to have you, and thank you for joining today. As I said, just briefly, if you do have questions, please click on the Q&A button, and you can submit your question through there, and then we'll start rolling through it. So just a little bit about ATC. So as you're familiar, we are very much in the safe space. We're a gold partner with Scaled Agile. And we're very big on training and helping companies work through the process of transformation into a safe enterprise. So we do that through a number of methods. One of them is one-on-one coaching with us and the company that's going through and really wanting to embrace the safe methodology from A to Z. The other is public training classes, which you may have attended. The other are private training classes that we do specifically for people within a company. And we've done these in multiple geographies across the world, as well as locally within companies of 25, 50 people. But we've had groups of high as 500 people or so. That's one piece of ATC, and that's a piece that keeps us very busy. On the other side of ATC, where I spend the majority of my time and my focus is on the solution side. So on the solution side, we take what's called an integrated solutions approach, and we're helping companies with everything from their cloud transformation or going cloud native and rebuilding and modernizing their applications to robotic process automation. We also do a lot of SaaS and custom software development for companies. A lot of times it's startups, but again, it could be a company that's looking to modernize their technology. We do business intelligence, we do testing and set up centers of excellence for companies that want to have a third-party validation for their testing and testing efforts. So there's a lot of different ways that you can work with ATC. If any of those hit a note with you, we'd love to talk further with you, or at least hear what you're doing and maybe suggest some ideas. I spend a lot of time doing that, working with innovation teams for a lot of companies and helping them just kind of refine their process or refine their go-to-market strategies as it relates to technology and technology's input for their organizations. So with that, I'm going to kill my video, save some bandwidth here because I'm sure my kids are playing Call of Duty downstairs. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Parag. Parag is our, again, global head of delivery for ATC. He is also an SPC, and he will be the one to beginning here, kind of taking and answering questions for us. So, hey, Parag, how are you?
Hey, everyone. Nice to have you here in the webinar, and I would be happy to answer your questions.
Excellent. So I'm going to moderate the questions as they come through. If somebody does have a more technical question, if you raise your hand, I can unmute you. And you can ask your question that way, just as an FYI. All right, we got about 6 questions so far coming in, so let's see here. This one, I learned a little bit about DevOps and leading safe class, but want to know more about how to implement it in my company. Which class would provide the details?
Sure, so I think that's a good question. And so if you have attended just a leading safe class, I think it talks about DevOps as a practice and what's involved in it, right? So as a leader, what it takes to implement DevOps in your organization. However, DevOps has got 2 parts. One is the practice side of it. So you learn what are different approaches that you can use. And the other part is the technology side of it, right? So how do you, actually go about implementing it? So as far as the safe courses are concerned, I think they will just talk about the practice side of it and the concept, but it doesn't cover the technology aspect of it. So there is a class specifically for DevOps, which is a safe DevOps class. And I would highly recommend that class as a starting point, because if you don't understand DevOps as a practice and if you directly get into the technology side of it, it might be difficult to understand what is the right way of implementing the technology. So I think understanding DevOps as a practice and the concepts is very important, and safe DevOps class exactly cover that concept. Now, once you once you go through that class, I think based on your organization's requirement, we would recommend you to work with one of the technology solution provider similar to ATC or even ATC. We would be more than happy to help you out on that front. When it comes to technology, your technology choices should be based on your business context. And what we can help with is like, do a detailed assessment of your business and your setup, your organization culture, and suggest different tools that can be incorporated in the organization to take the DevOps practice forward.
All right. Let's see here. Wow, there's a lot of questions on DevOps. So, do we need to implement cloud for implementing DevOps?
That's an interesting question. And a lot of time people think about cloud from DevOps perspective, because when you purchase any cloud service, basically you also get set of tools with that, which are available with the infrastructure, cloud infrastructure. And sometimes you start thinking that, okay, cloud and DevOps, they go hand in hand. Now, I would say though that cloud allows you to do a lot of things that are recommended from DevOps perspective, but it's not mandatory to do cloud transformation in order to implement DevOps. I think you must have learned in different trainings that you have attended. If there was a lesson related to DevOps, DevOps is more like a practice, and it's not like dependent on tools. So once you establish a practice where the tools come into picture, is to do a lot of automation, right? To simplify your job, remove delays out of the system, and make it really lean process, I would say, overall, to deliver the software. Now, cloud allow you to do that. So definitely, if you migrate to cloud, it will actually help you take your DevOps practice further. And it will also allow you to make your infrastructure scalable. So if you ask me honestly, I would recommend, yeah, if you have opportunity to do cloud transformation, please go for it. It will make your life easier, but it's not mandatory to implement DevOps.
Okay, next question. This was a little bit different. What are the biggest hurdles for a company to go through a safe transformation that they should be thinking about?
Well, so yeah, that's an interesting question. So the biggest hurdle, I would say, is to bring that change in the organization. Keep in mind, when you start talking about safe, it's a lean agile practice that you implement in the organization. And in order for lean agile to be successful, your organization need to go through a lot of cultural change in sense of how things are done in the organization. And it requires a lot of involvement from leaders in the organization, executives in the organization, as well as more influential people in the organization. So getting the buy-in of those people and getting them ready to support the initiative is, I would say, a biggest hurdle, right? Because if they don't see value in this implementation, they will never support that. And considering the magnitude of that change, without their support, it's going to be very difficult to implement it. The other biggest hurdle is to get everybody up to speed with what is changing, right? So basically putting your people through trainings and help them understand what is expected from them. Because what we have seen in a lot of cases is like one or two people just attended some safe training, and they decided to implement safe, and they were they had a lot of challenges. And they were literally implementing it on their own, and ran through a lot of issues. The primary reason is like people don't understand what is expected out of them without training. And second thing is like there is always going to be resistance to a change. So if you don't work on change management upfront and don't get the leadership buy-in, it's not going to be successful. So doing that change management is important, and that, I would say, that is the biggest hurdle. Other than that, reorganizing the team, changing your processes, maybe using different tools or implementing different tools, I think that is more of an implementation side of it, right? So the implementation is easy. I think getting everybody ready to change is the most difficult thing.
So with that, I just had a thought because I know we've helped a fair number of companies, but there needs to be certain positions in place. Like sometimes there's coaches and other folks like that. What key positions in order again to have a successful transformation, need to be in place that may not be within that organization right now, that they may have to think about hiring or bringing in a third party or something like that.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a good point. And so what I would recommend is like, considering the magnitude of this change, if you try to do it on your own, you might find yourself alone pushing for the change and might face a lot of resistance. And so there are partners like ATC who have got experience in doing a lot of transformation, and we understand what it takes to do the transformation, not only from your technology and infrastructure perspective, but also from the change management perspective. So if you bring in some of the agile coaches that can support you with the transformation, like the SPCs, right? That provide you training. These SPCs have got vast experience of doing different transformation, seeing different situations. They can help you influence the people that, influence people that are decision makers or leaders in the organization to help you support with the transformation. So, pairing up with one of the safe transformation partner would really be beneficial in going through the transformation. So in terms of position, the question that Nick had, I would say you need to have an agile coach, a technical coach, people who can guide you through the transformation.
Perfect. All right, here we go. What is the best way of doing test automation in DevOps?
Sure. So I think that's a interesting question. And one thing I want to say before I answer the question, a lot of time we hear people thinking about test automation when you think about DevOps, because DevOps talks a lot about automation. However, in the class you might have heard, right? DevOps is not about automation. Automation is part of DevOps. And typically when you say automation, the natural thought that come to your mind is about test automation. Now, test automation is again like one piece of software delivery that is there, but there is a whole lot of other automation that you can do in terms of how your code is checked in, how the code gets validated, verified, right, deployed. You can do automation on a lot of different fronts. As far as test automation is concerned, if you think about traditional test automation practice, that automation used to happen after the development was completed, right, and mostly on things that were already developed. Now with DevOps, one of the biggest thing that you will notice is like there is a lot of focus on moving testing on the left hand side, right, of the development process. So there is a lot of push to start doing testing as early as possible. And so there are a couple of things that you need to consider that are recommended in DevOps as a practice. One is doing test driven development. So whether you are doing unit testing, integration testing, or system level testing, you need to start following test-driven development practice where your test cases should be created before the development start. And that doesn't literally mean that your development has to wait, right? You don't want to create waterfall other way around, where before Agile and DevOps, people used to wait for development to be completed to start testing. We are not saying that when you start doing TDD, development wait for testing to be completed or test cases to be created, right? What we are saying is like basically you need to still go in the agile fashion where you pick up one work item at a time, develop it, deploy it, right, all the way to production. However, run it in parallel so your test cases can be ready. The developer can code for passing those test cases, and once the test cases are passed, you can that code gets checked in, gets evaluated, gets deployed to production, right? So TDD is one big component of it, and the other approach that is recommended under DevOps is using BDD, behavior driven development. And so what they're saying is like in BDD, basically when you do development, please keep your users perspective in mind, right, your users behavior on the system in mind, and align your development practices around that. And that also applies to testing, right? You need to make sure that whatever behavior was expected in the system is the way it is developed, that behavior is available, right, that user behavior is taken care of in your software system. So TDD and BDD practices are highly recommended from testing perspective and test automation perspective.
Perfect. One of the questions that always comes up, and Parag, I know you've gotten this, I don't know, probably a million times at some point. How do you calculate ROI, or how do they figure for ROI when a company is taking on such a big shift, such as adopting Safe?
So I think whoever attended the leading safe class or some of the other safe classes like lean portfolio management, etc. One major shift that you will see is like instead of funding a project, the focus is changing in terms of funding a value stream, right? And so if you guys understand the value stream concept, basically you start talking about doing what value a particular piece of work is going to deliver, right? And so that value is basically in couple of ways. One is your customer satisfaction, right? That is definitely there, but eventually you expect everything to be translated into a monetary benefit. So in terms of calculating the ROI, basically if you think about a piece of work and when you actually undertake that particular effort, there is a business case that is created, right? So if you guys remember portfolio canvas, there is a clear business case that is outlined. And in terms of getting that value, how do you get that value faster, right? Because the more delay you've got in terms of delivering that value, the value of that particular piece is going to go down. And so with safe lean agile mindset or lean agile practices, right? So you are able to deliver that value faster to the organization. So basically you try to remove the delay. So if you ask me like how do you measure it, basically whatever value was expected out of that implementation, whether or not you were able to realize that value, I think that is a good measure of like what return you got on your investment. Also, it's a subjective thing though. Think about those lean agile practices, right? And if those practices were not implemented, what how much time it would have taken to deliver that piece of work. And basically if you take more time to deliver that piece of work, how much less value you're going to get. So that's a kind of measurement you need to look at. Now if you ask me honestly, like is there kind of a tool that tells you that gives you this information? I won't say there is a straightforward tool where you just put this much, but I have put this much of budget into the system, and this is a total ROI I've got, right? Because you deliver value on incremental manner, and so your ROI is going to keep on increasing as you keep on removing delays from your system, as you keep on optimizing it, and as you learn from market and implement the feedback and optimize your system further. So you should see an incremental trend. You should see increased profit margins in the organization. You should see increased value being delivered to your customer. I think the upward trend is the best measure of understanding whether or not you are getting return on your investment.
Great. All right. Next question. And just as a reminder, folks, if you do have a question, feel free to submit it by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and you can type it in there. If you have a more, a longer question, a more technical question that you feel you need to explain, you can raise your hand, and I can unmute you, and you'll be able to ask Parag directly. Okay, Parag. Let's see here. Next question. Can I configure Safe or change Safe to meet the needs of our company, or do we have to follow the Safe methodology, to a T? Is basically what they're asking.
Can you repeat the last part of the question, Nick?
Yeah, basically, am I able to customize Safe at all for our environment if we need to?
Okay. Well, I mean, let me talk a little bit about SAFE, right? When you think about SAFE, there is a framework that Scaled Agile has provided, and you have seen different variations of that framework, right? So essential safe, full configuration, then you have got portfolio, large solution, etc. Now that's just a framework, but when you look underneath the framework, there are a set of lean and agile practices that you learn, and those practices are more important than just following the framework. So what that framework help you do is basically use those practices in the best possible way. But let's say you want, there are certain components on the framework that you think are not going to work for your organization. Yeah, you're always open to make those changes happen, right? You can always make those changes. The important thing that you need to keep in mind though, when you make any changes in the framework, think about the principles that you learned, right? The lean and agile principle, as well as the principles for scaling. and make sure that you try and stay close to those principles. You follow those principles in the changes that you're bringing in, and I think you should be successful implementing those changes or variations specific to your organization.
Okay, got some more DevOps ones. Do we need to implement SAFe for implementing DevOps?
Well, no. Basically, these are independent things. So when you think about SAFe, again, SAFe is more about framework and lean agile practices. Now, the reason SAFe recommend DevOps because it allows you to make the processes more lean, faster. There are good practices there that help you remove wastage out of the system. But DevOps is a set of practice and which specifically focus on collaboration between development and operations, right? So it talks highly about how can your development and operation team work together in terms of providing faster response to your customer and better response to your customer. So yeah, for DevOps practices, you don't need to implement SAFe for implementing DevOps or vice versa. So SAFe recommend DevOps highly just because it allows you to make your process more lean and deliver value faster to your customer. So you can still implement SAFe without DevOps. It's just that your value is going to get bit delayed if you don't follow some of the DevOps practices.
Gotcha. Then I think it was worth mentioning what tools do they need to know for implementing DevOps?
Well, yeah, that's a question that we get a lot of time. And I mean, there are plenty of tools, right? But think about tools from the perspective of like, automating your process, not from using the tool just for sake of using, right? So one of the activity that if you attend the Safe DevOps class, one of the activity that you will undergo is to create your value stream, right? Do your value stream mapping where you literally document your value stream. You document what are the underlying systems that are supporting that value streams, and your tools are also part of that value stream basically. And what these tools help you do is basically remove the delay out of that particular process. So let's say you have a starting point and you have an end point for value stream, right? So you get a demand from customer and you deliver the work to the customer, right? So that's your typical value stream, and the value delivery happen when you deliver that work to the customer. Now, when you think from this start to end, how can you deliver that value faster, right? So, what are the tools that you need to use in terms of delivering this value faster? And so, there are plenty of tools for achieving some common tasks that you will see across the entire development process. So, for example, there are tools that help you deploy the code automatically to your different environments, right? That are there. So as soon as developer is done doing their coding, they check in their code into the version control tool. Once that is checked in, it will get evaluated through the automation test cases and will get deployed all the way to production. So there are multiple tools to do same thing. For example, for version control, you have tools like GitHub, then a Bitbucket, etc. Right? So there are these kind of tools. Then for test automation, you have plenty of tools like Selenium, Puppeteer, and whatnot. Right? Then when you consider talk about deployment, you have tools like Jenkins, or there are tools that are built into cloud, right? So there are different tools that can be used. To answer your question, I think you need to understand what your value stream look like and what kind of technologies you need to use in terms of delivering that value. And once you know answer to that, then you can figure out, okay, what are the best tools that are available in market, whether you want to use proprietary tools, whether you want to open source tools. That decision the organization need to make based on their budget, etc. So I would highly recommend creating a tool matrix, right, based on thorough analysis of your situation. And once you create a tool matrix, then you can go about procuring those tools and implementing those tools. So to be honest, I mean, it's very difficult to just give you two or three names and tell you that, oh, go implement these tools and then you will be able to implement DevOps, right? That answer is not that straightforward because there are so many tools that are available in market to do the same job.
Got it. All right. Let me see here. How is Essential Safe different from Portfolio Safe?
So which safe?
Essential Safe?
Essential safe. Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Uh, And so basically, when you look at safe, when you talk about the essential safe and portfolio safe, right? I guess you're talking about the configuration, safe configuration. And when you look at essential safe, it focuses on the program layer as well as the team level, right? Which is like the bottom portion of the safe framework. And what it talks about is like as a uh, art, how can your team come up with how can your team implement a process, lean agile process, where the team focus on creating the backlog, right, for a particular solution, like a feature backlog, and deliver the items in that backlog by doing prioritization, etc., right? Prioritization, planning, all that stuff. When you talk about portfolio safe, that's a top level, a top layer in the safe framework, and which talks about lean budget, etc., right? Your business case, minimum viable product, etc. So it talks about your portfolio management basically. So portfolio safe typically has got that top layer, while your essential safe has got the bottom two layer in the safe framework.
Gotcha. So, Parag, I know you've got a drop for another call, but I'd like to welcome Nisha to the call. So, Nisha, thank you for being able to join us. She may have been your trainer. She may have been somebody that you've spoken with, and she's definitely one of our favorite trainers. So, Nisha, welcome to the call.
Thank you, Nate.
It's good to have you and good to hear your voice. It's been a while since I know since we've been able to speak, so it's good to hear you and hope you're doing well.
Yep. Same here. Hope you all are well too.
Yes. All right, so I'll give you your first question. Here we go. Hold on here. So let me scroll through this. What is an iteration review in SAFe?
Sure. So first of all, iteration review is a team meeting. It is basically addressing two objectives. There are two objectives of this meeting. One is to see how iteration is doing, the 2-week iteration. It is compared against the iteration goals that the team had or that particular iteration. Second thing, SAFe emphasizes working software is your true measure of the progress. So iteration review definitely wants teams to showcase their work by demonstrating, having a team demo and a system demo. And then lastly, I would say it is not just a measure of that particular iteration. It is also a true measure of how the company is doing in terms of a whole PI, program increment. So again, for you, some of you who do not know PI is basically about a 5 iteration time frame that includes 5 iterations. And the 5th one is reserved for innovation and planning. So when you are in your second iteration and having an iteration review, it not only focuses on iteration 2, but it also focuses on your PI objectives as a whole for the whole PI, and tries to compare and do a pulse check on what we really need to achieve. Have we achieved what we wanted to achieve in iteration 2? If there are bottlenecks, how do we address? PI is a whole team level activity, a program level activity. We have all the teams, business stakeholders, decision makers. So it is really important to measure in terms of the whole PI and let business know if we have any bottlenecks. If not, how are we really doing? So yeah, that will be it, Nick. And again, if anybody needs further elaboration, I can definitely do that.
Great, thank you, Nisha. And again, just as a reminder, if you do have a question, please feel free to click the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen and submit your question through there. If it's a more technical question, you can raise your hand and I'll unmute you and you can ask Nisha the question directly. Okay, so we've got about 3 or 4 more questions, it looks like, so far.
Sure.
Why is value stream mapping important?
Sure. So that's one of the really good principles, very close to my heart. I definitely felt it had a great value in my journey, when we were going through a full transformation. So again, value stream workshop, let's first understand what it is, and then we will see why it's important. So value stream workshop is a very portfolio program level event where all the business executives, product management, product manager, and again, any technical stakeholders who are needed, they all get together and map out the operational value streams and the dev value streams. They map out what is the company's value? How many lines of business do you have? What's the trigger for the company? What are the workflow? What's the process look like? How do we really get the dollar? What's the input to, basically dollars in your bank account? Map out the whole thing and really just focus on what are the important systems and people underneath it who are making those systems are, giving the true value to your customers. But again, in return, basically giving value to the company. So now that we define what the value stream, so this workshop is basically, it can be conducted over 1 or 2 days, involves multiple executives, business owners, and product management, as I mentioned. Why we do this? Because in companies who haven't really gone through transformation and have a very hierarchical legacy systems, it's just natural by the structure that many siloed systems are existing. There are 4 different VPs having 4 different departments, one improving data quality, another improving IT, another product development, and whatnot. You all must have seen that, right? So do we really have a value when we just have one whole department improving the data quality? Maybe the value is that they both should be merging together. Those 60, 80, member teams should merge together and think innovatively and see where the true value is. Maybe the true value is not in just, doing a patchwork, improving the quality. Maybe it is in improving the tech debt. Maybe it is in building the new systems where we do not have a tech debt to begin with. So value streaming workshop is a really important, activity to bring all the executives aligned. There are many times, even executive level, the alignment isn't there. They all may have different values from their own departments, but we need to think as of one company, one system, where the maximum value is, and surround your people around that to bring improvements and business agility.
Great, thank you. And there's looks like a follow-on to that. Excuse me. It says, while we have a system teams for the art, which integrates the work of the agile teams, which team is a parallel of a system team in the value stream, or which integrates the work of the value streams?
Okay, yeah. So I'm just reading the question a little bit again. While we have a system team for the art, which integrates the work of agile team, yes, that's right. Which team is a parallel of a system team in the value stream? So there is no comparison. There is no parallel of a system team. System team in itself is a team which supports entire art. All the teams is teams in making the systems, basically go live. If they have Eclipse upgrade, they take care of everybody. Value stream is not a parallel to the art. Value stream workshop and value streaming is a level up activity in portfolio needed to be done to get to the strategic themes, to get to what our arts should be doing. So system team kind of spreads across, as you mentioned, as I read in a question, whoever asked that question. But again, value stream workshop is not a parallel to the art. Value stream activity is a step up activity that needs to be done before even art can be formed. What does art will do, and who all people would be in the art is decided by value streaming workshop.
Got it. And then a part of that says solution integration across value stream as a question.
Oh, okay. So yes, if there is a large solution level, then there will be solution ideas that will be driven from the value stream workshop. then the value stream workshop could come back with multiple value streams, having multiple solutions. And again, every solution train would have multiple arts. But again, the definition of solution, the definition of value stream, and the people who would belong in an art, and what work these arts will do is all determined in value streaming workshops.
And then the next one is, what is the primary goal of decentralized decision making?
That's interesting. So, first of all, again, let's define centralized and decentralized for people who don't have much idea about the framework as of yet. Centralized decision making is basically having your key stakeholders, business owners, executives make a decision. Decentralized means organization trying to decentralize and give the decision-making authority to the lower levels as much as possible. So again, SAFe principle says, try to have a decision-making where the information lies. Now, what's the importance of decentralized then? If you think, if there are decisions that need to be making, those are need to be made every day. For example, do we need to release this system to the client? Do we need this update? Do we need to move the story to the iteration 2? These are some of the questions that are best decided and will be answered where the information lies. It will be either the product owner or the team who can best decide that, maybe in conversation with client. Do you need a BO, business owner, and an executive VP to decide that? No, So the importance of decentralized decision making is actually twofold. One, to make quicker decisions, to not to have dependencies where there is no need of a dependency. Another thing is also it motivates your people. People who are close to technology, they need to be making decisions. Solution architect can make a decision on what technology is best for the company. It empowers them. It tells them the company and executives trust you. You have a value that you bring. We value that, and so on.
Great, thank you, Nisha. Let me see here. There's one more question that we have. What is the difference between a capability and a feature? Did you catch that, Nisha? You're muted.
Sorry, I was speaking on mute.
Oh.
So I was saying, at the higher level, there is an epic, which means a bigger requirement. And if you go to say framework, scaleagileframework.com, there are 4 levels to Scale Agile Framework: this portfolio, large solution, program, and the team. So at each level, there are requirements, right? Epic is the biggest requirement. Then comes the capabilities. So one epic can be divided into multiple capabilities. One capability can be divided into multiple features. And ultimately, one feature can be divided into multiple user stories. So it's just a way of organizing your requirements and again, slicing vertically in order to bring the best value out the door quicker.
Great, thank you. All right, we're at the end of our questions. If anybody has a question, please feel free to submit it now. If not, we'll wrap up in just a minute or so. But if anybody's submitting any last questions, we do appreciate your attendance. I don't know where you're at on your SAFe journey. It's a little bit different for everybody, but we do hold these monthly and encourage you to attend. And if you're having any roadblocks or any issues with your SAFe implementation, or a lot of times what we know is people take training and then it may be 3 or 4 months before they actually go to implementation or putting it into practice for various reasons within the companies that they work for. So sometimes things get forgotten when you don't put it in the process right away. So we're here to help any way that we can with that. Parag put his email in the chat, which you can always reach out to him if you have questions or anything as well. And I don't see any other questions coming in. So Nisha, very much appreciate you cutting some time out of your day and making it to the call and giving some great answers to our guests.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, and I can be reachable if there are any more questions.
Great. And thank you very much to all our attendees. And if there's anything we can do for you, again, please feel free to reach out, and we hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Bye-bye.